Late February 2025. England. At a forgotten rest stop on the edge of the A19 motorway, near the small North Yorkshire town of Thirsk, a group of police and forensic archaeologists were quietly digging through the hardened earth. They weren't digging for treasure. They were looking for a woman who had disappeared nearly 12 years earlier. And then they found a large decaying suitcase, buried deep in the cold mud. Inside, tightly sealed, was a set of human remains. The teeth were still intact. Initial records called it an honor killing, a sophisticated, technologically advanced crime designed to deceive the justice system for over a decade. But something wasn't right. Why would a mother of 3 young children, a woman known to be utterly devoted to her family, text relatives from Turkey, saying she had run away to start a new life, while her body lay silently beneath the cold earth of a rural English village for nearly 12 years? But that was just the first thing. Before becoming a name on the investigation file, Rania Alaid was a human being, 25 years old, a young mother possessing a vitality not easily found in her life after everything she had been through. Moving to Manchester, Rania didn't choose to withdraw into herself. She enrolled in an English course at a local college, not because it was mandatory, but because she wanted to learn, to understand, to belong to the place she lived in her own way. Her friends, later, spoke of Rania in just a few simple words: elegant, gentle, intelligent, and always yearning for something freedom, in the most ordinary way a mother of 3 could wish for. She had 3 children, 2 boys, 1 girl. For Rania, her children were the entire reason she kept trying. In early 2013, she made a decision to move out and live on her own in an apartment in Cheetham Hill, Manchester. Not an escape, but a new beginning. She made new friends. She went to school. She made plans, the very normal plans of a mother, to raise her 3 children in a better environment, in a country where she believed they would have a better chance. No one, not even Rania herself, knew that she only had a few months to live. The man standing next to Rania in their wedding photo from years ago was Ahmed Al-Khatib. He was 9 years older than her, a blacksmith by profession, and in the eyes of those around them, neighbors, the immigrant community, even some relatives, Ahmed was the epitome of a well-behaved man, calm, quiet, modest in his demeanor. The Al-Khatib family, from the outside, appeared to be a respectable family, the kind often spoken of with reverence, upholding tradition, valuing family honor, and raising children according to strict rules. Ahmed wasn't the attention-seeking type. Not loud, not ostentatious. That's precisely what made him trustworthy. But a house, after all, is just a closed door to those standing outside it. And behind those doors of the Al-Khatib family, according to what was later presented in court, lies a story entirely different from the calm exterior Ahmed always projected. No one knew, no one asked. Because in such a traditional household, such questions are not asked. Looking back, people always say, if only we had known sooner. But the signs, they were there, long before things came to an end. First, control. Ahmed couldn't accept his wife's gradual change, the way she dressed, the way she spoke, the way she saw the world after arriving in England. To him, it was an unforgivable westernization. He didn't want Rania to socialize with the outside world. He was annoyed whenever she went to her English class, and little by little, he found ways to take away the most dangerous thing for someone who wants to control others' financial independence. Rania's new friends in England, one by one, were cut off from her life. Not by an overt order, but by subtle pressure, by the machinations of her husband's entire family behind Ahmed. She was increasingly pushed into a narrow framework where every decision she made had to be approved by others. This wasn't entirely a secret. Previous women's protection records and police reports showed that Rania had repeatedly called for help, reporting severe domestic violence from her husband. It wasn't just visible bruises. It was a more insidious form of violence, repeated insults designed to erode her self-esteem until she no longer believed she deserved anything better. 3 signs, clear enough to worry anyone. But Rania did something that not every woman in her situation would have the courage to do. she decided to leave. Every story like this has a point of no return. For Ahmed Al-Khatib, that point came in early 2013 when Rania not only left, but did something he never imagined his wife would dare to do. She filed for, officially claiming, custody of all 3 children. For an ordinary woman, it would be a mother's decision to protect her children. But for a man with an extreme patriarchal mindset like Ahmed, it wasn't simply disobedience. It was a direct blow to what he valued most, his so-called family honor. Because for Ahmed, Rania and the children weren't individuals with the right to decide their own lives. They were part of his property. And once that ultimate control was threatened by the very wife who dared to stand up and reclaim it, only one question remained in Ahmed's mind. It's not about how to keep the family together. It's about how to regain control at any cost. On the afternoon of the 7th of June 2013, Ahmed Al-Khatib contacted Rania Alaid and suggested a meeting to discuss child custody and the children's weekend visits. After numerous marital conflicts, this seemed like a rare opportunity for them to find common ground. Believing the meeting would only revolve around the children's future, Rania agreed to bring the children to Ahmed's brother Muhan's apartment in Salford. Outwardly, everything looked like a normal family gathering. But what Rania didn't know was that everything had been prearranged. Around 5 p.m., Muhan proactively took his wife and children out of the apartment, leaving only Ahmed, Rania, and the 3 children inside. The door closed, and Rania found herself in a situation she had never anticipated. Shortly afterward, Ahmed led Rania into a separate room, separating her from the 3 children who were still in the next room. The children couldn't see what was happening, but the initial silence was quickly replaced by sounds that drew the attention of the neighbors. According to case documents, several neighbors later reported hearing screams and violent banging that lasted for about 45 minutes coming from the apartment. This was the most tense period of the entire incident, as Rania's attempts at resistance were gradually drowned out by the enclosed walls. Around 6:45 p.m., all sounds inside the apartment suddenly ceased. Shortly afterward, Muhan took the 3 children out of the apartment first. According to the case file, the children were taken away without witnessing their mother's final moments. Inside the apartment, Rania had no chance of ever getting out again. In less than 2 hours, the meeting, which had begun with a promise to discuss the children's future, ended in an irreversible tragedy. But for Ahmed, it wasn't over yet. What he did next would open the next phase of the case and prolong the process of seeking justice for Rania for many years to come. If what happened in the apartment was a crime, the following hours revealed just how meticulously Ahmed Al-Khatib had prepared a cover-up. According to the case file, instead of panicking or fleeing immediately, Ahmed remained at the scene. He put on Rania's clothes and headscarf, or hijab. Then, he calmly walked out of the building slowly, deliberately appearing in front of the surveillance cameras. The purpose of this action was clear: to create an image that would convince anyone reviewing the footage that Rania was still alive and had left the apartment on her own. But that was only the first layer of disguise. After deceiving the cameras, Ahmed returned inside the apartment. According to the investigation's conclusions, Rania's body was then placed in a large suitcase. With the help of his brother's motorhome, Ahmed left Salford at night and drove hundreds of kilometers toward North Yorkshire. Near the A19 motorway, he secretly buried the body, hoping the distance would erase any traces leading back to the scene. But Ahmed's plan didn't stop there. He then seized Rania's phone and used it to send messages to her relatives. The messages all told the same story. Rania had voluntarily left England, gone to Turkey, and started a new life with another man. This was a fabricated explanation intended to confuse the family and slow down the search. According to the case file, Ahmed took another, more sophisticated step. He gave Rania's phone to an acquaintance who was about to fly to Turkey. When the device was switched on in that country, the location data created the illusion that Rania had actually left England. For weeks, this misinformation clouded the investigation, making it far more difficult to determine her true whereabouts. If you only look at what Ahmed had orchestrated, the whole story seemed perfectly closed. Camera footage showed a woman believed to be Rania leaving the building on her own. Her phone appeared in Turkey. A series of messages claimed she had deliberately disappeared. Every link was set up to lead investigators to a false conclusion. But there was one thing Ahmed underestimated. Traces can be concealed, but the truth cannot. And it was these seemingly small details in the subsequent investigation that began to unravel the entire elaborate charade he had concocted. For weeks after Rania Alaid disappeared, Ahmed Al-Khatib persistently maintained the story he had fabricated. Text messages sent from Rania's phone, along with signals detected in Turkey, initially made the case appear to be a voluntary adult disappearance. But the deeper investigators delved, the more inconsistencies there were in the details that contradicted Rania's true identity. On the 9th of June, 2013, Rania's friends began reporting to the police that they couldn't contact her. Initially, this was treated as a missing person case requiring verification. However, a turning point occurred on July 2 when Rania's maternal uncle from Lebanon proactively called the investigators. He asserted something the family firmly believed: Rania would never intentionally abandon her 3 children. It wasn't just a subjective assessment, but an affirmation based on her character, responsibility, and the love she always had for her children. This call forced investigators to look at the case from a completely different perspective. As the theory that Rania left voluntarily began to falter, the police went back to examine every piece of the file. One of the most crucial pieces of evidence was the building's surveillance camera system. Initially, the footage seemed to show a woman wearing a hijab leaving the apartment after Rania was last seen. But the experts didn't stop at the surface conclusion. By zooming in on the images and analyzing anthropometric characteristics, they focused on elements that clothing couldn't conceal. Broad shoulders, body proportions, the way she swung her arms while walking, and her gait were all inconsistent with Rania. Each small detail pieced together to a remarkable conclusion. The person on camera was not Rania. It was a man wearing her clothes and headscarf. According to the investigation, that man was Ahmed Al-Khatib. But a bigger question remained. If Rania hadn't left the apartment, where had her body been taken? The answer gradually emerged from digital data. The Automatic License Plate Recognition System, or ANPR, recorded the journeys of vehicles on the road. By comparing the data, investigators discovered that the Al-Khatib family's motorhome had made an unusual trip to North Yorkshire on the very night Rania disappeared. This trip completely contradicted Ahmed's explanation and quickly became a central line of investigation. At this point, the entire elaborate scheme Ahmed had constructed began to show cracks. Each piece of evidence, from the family's testimony and camera footage to the ANPR data, was insufficient to draw conclusions in isolation. But when put together, they form a picture that even the most sophisticated concealment plan cannot hide. If Ahmed Al-Khatib believed that a well-planned scheme could erase all traces, he underestimated what investigators always believed most: science doesn't lie. As the investigation expanded, forensic experts returned to the Salford apartment to search for traces no longer visible to the naked eye. The floor surfaces and many areas inside had been thoroughly cleaned, but cleaning the scene didn't mean erasing all evidence. By using specialized chemicals to detect hidden bloodstains, the concealed traces began to surface. What appeared before the investigators showed that a serious incident had occurred in the apartment, directly contradicting Ahmed's claim that he hadn't seen Rania for months before her disappearance. With just one forensic result, his first lie began to crumble. The next blow didn't come from the laboratory, but from a seemingly ordinary witness. On the morning of June 8th, the motorhome belonging to the Al-Khatib family broke down and needed to be towed. Those directly involved in assisting later provided testimony detailing their observations upon approaching the vehicle. This testimony became a crucial link in the investigation, casting serious doubt on Ahmed's explanation that the vehicle was only used for routine trips. When this testimony was compared with other evidence, the story he had been trying to construct became increasingly contradictory. But the decisive blow came years later. 12 years later, the suitcase buried underground was unearthed for examination. Forensic archaeologists meticulously peeled away layers of soil and mud clinging to the artifact, performing DNA identification and dental matching. The results confirmed the victim's identity as Rania Alaid. This discovery completely put an end to the story Ahmed had maintained for years, that Rania had left England to start a new life in Turkey. Science had provided the final answer, and in the face of the conclusions built upon the evidence, all of Ahmed's lies were successively exposed. On the 4th of July, 2013, nearly a month after Rania Alaid's disappearance, the investigation entered a crucial phase. Police arrested Ahmed Al-Khatib and his brother, Muhand. By this point, the story of Rania leaving England on her own, abandoning her 3 children to start a new life in Turkey, could no longer hold up against the evidence gathered by the investigators. Technological evidence continued to tighten the noose around the 2 brothers. CCTV footage from the Salford apartment was no longer considered proof that Rania was alive, but rather part of a cover-up. The motorhome's travel data also drew police attention toward North Yorkshire, where the vehicle had been moving erratically on the night Rania disappeared. Under pressure from this evidence, Muhand began to change his testimony. The brother who had previously contributed to the silence finally admitted that Rania was dead. And more importantly, he revealed the location where her body was hidden along the A19 highway. At that moment, the charade Ahmed had concocted began to crumble completely. No more fake messages, no more stories about Turkey, no more disguised images to mislead the police. Layer after layer of cover-up was peeled away, leaving behind the cold truth. Rania hadn't left. She had been taken, then buried as a secret that Ahmed believed he could carry with him forever. But when Muhand revealed the location of the body, Ahmed Al-Khatib was officially cornered. From someone who tried to control the entire narrative, he became a suspect, betrayed by the very evidence he had created. In 2014, the Rania Alaid case went to trial at Manchester Crown Court. After months of denial, distraction, and fabricating a story that Rania had left England on her own, Ahmed Al-Khatib finally faced the full extent of his efforts to conceal his actions. In court, Ahmed continued to evade responsibility. He offered outlandish testimony, claiming he acted in self-defense after witnessing his wife transform into a terrifying entity. However, before the jury, these explanations could not mask the evidence assembled by investigators. CCTV footage, movement data, testimony from those involved, and the entire scheme to falsely claim Rania was still alive. The trial also saw a chaotic moment when Ahmed attacked his interpreter. This action further solidified his image in court as unstable and dangerous. But no matter what Ahmed tried to portray, the jury looked at the evidence, and the evidence was not on his side. On the 4th of June 2014, Ahmed Al-Khatib was convicted of murder. The court sentenced him to life imprisonment with a minimum of 20 years. His 2 brothers also received a combined 7-year sentence for obstructing justice. That was the final moment justice spoke for Rania. But the sentence, however harsh, could not return the mother to her 3 young children. It could only confirm a truth that Ahmed had tried to deny at all costs. Rania did not disappear, did not run away, did not leave her family on her own accord. She had been robbed of her life by her former husband, then made the center of a cruel drama that lasted for weeks. Towards the end of this story, perhaps we don't need to say more about Ahmed Al-Khatib, because in some cases, if we keep focusing on the perpetrator, we inadvertently allow the person who caused the tragedy to take over all memories of the victim. And Rania Alaid deserves to be remembered for more than just the name of the man who killed her. Let's talk about the father, the uncle, the relatives in the Middle East who have lived for 12 years in incomplete grief. They knew Rania was gone, but they couldn't bring her home, couldn't bury her the way a family should to close the chapter on their sorrow. There are pains that aren't loud, that don't appear in the newspapers every day, but they linger through the years, through every phone call, every hope followed by disappointment. Let's talk about the 3 children who left the apartment that day, not knowing that it would be the last time they would be near their mother. They grew up with a void no one could fill, with the memory of an afternoon when their childhood was shattered in the most cruel way. And then, in 2025, when what remained of Rania was found, relief came belatedly. Not joy, but a kind of painful peace. Finally, she was called by her rightful name. Finally, her family could know where she rested. Finally, the truth had taken shape. At the rest stop near the A19, memorial flowers were laid for Rania by strangers. They didn't know her when she was alive, but still chose to bow before a mother who had been taken from her children. And perhaps that is the lingering echo of this case. Justice is not just in the verdict. Sometimes, justice is in the moment, when an entire community says, "We remember her, we believe in her, and she is not forgotten." There are those who spend years cultivating the image of a family man, traditional, dignified, and always talking about honor. But sometimes, in just one night, that mask falls, revealing what has been lurking behind it for so long, not love, not responsibility, but cold control under the guise of honor.